Hey everybody, happy Thirsty Thursday. Welcome to the latest, greatest edition of The Sweat presented by DraftKings alongside Jesse Cofield. I am Emerson Lancia. Would you be so kind as to let everybody know what we have coming up in this show, potentially award-winning show, in the next 55 minutes?
I sure do. We got Jared Carabas sitting down with the catcher of America's team.
Yeah, America's team 1A.
1A, okay. Which preseason bets are football guys like around the NFC West? And a Monday Mutt Stack on a Thursday. Because that's how we do it. We're getting crazy here.
What? But first, if you throw a perfect game in baseball and no one's there to see it, does it still count? Last night, in the span of a few hours, Yankees pitcher Domingo Germán went from one of the worst stretches of his career to MLB history, throwing the 24th perfect game in front of a sparsely attended Oakland Coliseum. DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer, Gary, and Thorne, welcome to the program. Dudes, in his last start a week ago, Germán allowed 10 runs in a game against Seattle. Should a perfect game against this Oakland A's roster even count, Nick Fryer?
Yeah, it should absolutely still count. I mean, it's an amazingly difficult feat to accomplish. I mean, like you said, there's only 23 other guys who've accomplished it beforehand. That said, I don't really care about Domingo Germán having any success for various reasons. So I'm not like excited about this. I wasn't trying to tune in as it was going on late and everything. Obviously, they're playing in Oakland, so that makes it even worse. Both because it's late and because they're playing in front of the Oakland fans, which I totally get why they don't want to attend games. But yeah, it's an amazing accomplishment. But I'm also like, whatever.
Right? I woke up, I saw the news, and I did the same exact thing when I was still under the covers in my bed. I said, whatever. Gare Bear, there were 3 perfect games in the first half of 2012, then none until last night. How weird is baseball?
I mean, very weird. And that's the thing. I have similar feelings to this as Nick for a multitude of reasons. Domingo Germán just doesn't seem like a great guy. Can kind of just leave it at that, I guess. But look, it's an accomplishment to be sure. The A's factor in this is tough. Like, they are actively trying to lose games. That's unfortunate. So what I did today was I woke up and thought, who would I like to see throw a perfect game who's pitching today to sort of like cleanse the palate? Zach Greinke, go out there today, bud, and throw a perfect game. It would really help baseball as a whole.
I'm actually shocked you didn't roll with your boy Chris Bassett. Yeah.
Also a good dude. Don't think he's going to throw a perfect game, however.
No. And that's just one of 5 games on the slate tonight, right?
Yeah, 5 games on that slate. Giants wrapping up their series in Toronto. Garion, Toronto. Yeah.
Toronto.
Canada.
You're home.
Sure. Garion, what's a bet in this one that you like?
They're really pronouncing that second T.
Yeah.
Gonna bet against Chris Bassett here. He's been bad his last 3 starts, giving up 15 earned runs in those 3 outings. And the problem with Bassett for the entirety of the season, even when he was going well in the month of May, left-handed bats. They have hit him to the tune of a 4.08 WOBA so far this season. That is among the worst marks among qualified pitchers in all of baseball. The Giants have a lot of left-handed bats. I just don't think this goes exceedingly well for him. But I'm going to single out Lamont Wade Jr., likely to be hitting leadoff tonight for the Giants. I like him to go over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBI in this game. That is minus 120. One, he's the leadoff guy. He could get 5 plate appearances in this game. He walks a ton. So even in that scenario, he could score some runs in this contest. But mostly, he just hits right-handed pitching really well. A 153 WRC plus so far this season. So I think Wade and the Giants in general have a pretty good night tonight.
All right, Nick Fryer, what's a bet in this one that you're looking at?
Yeah, Gary already hit on the struggles of Chris Bassett of late. I mean, one thing he didn't mention, though, in those 3 outings, he's only logged 11 2/3 innings, so 15 runs during that span. That's pretty freaking brutal. So I'm going to go with the Giants straight up money line here as underdogs. Keaton Winn is on the bump for San Francisco, and he's done a great job of generating ground balls in his few outings this season against right-handed hitting, specifically in the Blue Jays have one of the higher ground ball rates against right-handed pitching this month. And then when you look at the Giants too, they are 9-6 on the road after seeing the underhit in the game prior, and they're also 8-3 in that setting when they're playing as underdogs.
Fryer, Brewers Mets series finale. Scherzer on the bump. What's a bet in this one, dude?
Yeah, this one's been a weird series. We've seen it kind of go back and forth and everything. Obviously, we got Scherzer on the bump now, going up against Adrian Hauser, a guy who we all generally like to fade. He's been relieving in his last couple outings, so I'm going to continue to fade him here. You can't go and take the Mets on the money line, at least in my opinion, because they're right at minus 190 right now. Probably going to be minus 200 by the time Gary and I are done talking about it. So I'm going to take Max Scherzer to record a win. After those two brutal outings he had earlier in the month, he has been in one. He's won a close game, won a blowout, so that's great for the offense that's backing him too, and seeing what the bullpen can do behind him. They can still support him. Then you look at the Brewers. They have one of the 5 lowest ISOs against right-handed pitching this month, and on the season, the Brewers are 6-9 as road underdogs following a win.
Gare Bear, what side do you fall on here?
I'm going to go with the prop market as well. I mean, I like the Mets. It's just hard to find a way to bet them tonight. But I think Max Scherzer's strikeout prop is a little low. It's 7.5, which, again, that's one of the bigger numbers we generally see. But the fact it's even money for him to go over that prop, he's done that in 5 of his last 6 starts. His strikeout rate in that span of time, and that was the big red flag with Max Scherzer to start this season, is where have the strikeouts gone? Back up to around 29-30% in that 6-start run. And then you've got the Brewers, who just strike out a lot, regardless of who is on the mound against them. In the month of June, they are one of 3 teams in baseball with a strikeout rate above 27% as a team. So I think Scherzer gets over this number relatively easily. I don't want to say I was shocked it wasn't 8.5, because that's such a huge prop, but 7.5 seems low.
All right, Astros and Cardinals. Wainwright going for St. Louis here. Garion, another rough day for him against the Astros, despite the Astros' struggles on offense. What do you think?
So the Astros are weird. You can kind of lump them in with like the Blue Jays of teams that have a really good WRC plus, but are terrible with runners in scoring position. So it sort of gives you a weird view of how they are as a team. Like, they're actually 9th in WRC plus in the month of June. They're fine. They're not the Astros of the last half decade, but they're fine. They're still a very good lineup. And I think they do some damage against Adam Wainwright today. I mean, Wainwright has been terrible so far this season. All his ERA estimators are well above 6. His ERA is well above 6. It's just bad. And I am shocked that his outs recorded prop tonight is sitting at 17.5. To go over that prop, he would have to throw 6 innings. He has started 9 games this year. He has done that 1 time. So the under is 8-1 for this prop so far this season. It was minus 120. It's now moved to minus 130. I understand that because there is no way he's going over this prop.
All right, Fry, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, that is a perfect call. Another call that you could go with, too, is taking Wainwright's over on his hits total. I mean, I know it's a little bit high at minus 165, but 6.5, I mean, that's a number that we've seen other teams go over against him regularly throughout the year. I believe there's only been 1 time where the under on that play has hit. But I'm going to go with the total in this one, over 9.5. I know JP France is opposite of Adam Wainwright, but you look at the Cardinals, what they've done against right-handed pitching this month. They put up a 196 ISO. Then you go over to Houston side of it, who I expect to carry this total, 191 ISO against right-handed pitching this month. And obviously we talked about Adam Wainwright a ton. But one number I do want to cite too, the over is 12-5 in Cardinals home games after the over hit in the contest prior this season.
All right, Fryer, we got Phillies going for the series sweep in Chicago against the Cubs. Walker on the bump, 5-1 record with a sparkling 1.71 ERA in his last 7 starts. What stands out to you in the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, he is so hot right now, and but the thing is that Kyle Hendricks has been pretty good this season too, surprisingly enough. I was on the Phillies yesterday to win. They came through for us, even though Aaron Nola was kind of things didn't go as well for him, but that's kind of been the way things have gone for him this season. The Cubs have not hit right-handed pitching all that well this month. Neither has Philly, for that matter. So I'm actually going to go with the total. I'm going to go with an alternate, though, to get that extra half run. The total is set right now at 10 on DK Sportsbook. I'm going to go with 10.5. Philly games after a win in which the over hit, the under in the following game is 8-5. And as I mentioned before, these two pitchers have been doing really well throughout this month. Philly has a 151 ISO against right-handed pitching, and they've actually been getting pretty lucky too. They got a 322 BABIP against right-handed pitching this month. Then you look at the Cubs too; they're striking out a little bit more than Philadelphia, 23.6% K rate against righties, and then they only have a 131 ISO against right-handed pitching. So I like the under on that alternate line to hit.
Gary, and the Phillies just absolutely own the Cubs this season, who are 6-12 against the NL East.
Yeah. Look, NL Central teams and AL Central teams are not going to do well outside their own division. So just with that as a starting point, I'm just going to keep backing the Phillies. They're just minus 115 on the money line. Kyle Hendricks has pitched really well. I can't deny that. And like Nick, I did take a long, hard look at the total for this game. I just think it's a little disrespectful to two pitchers who have been pitching as well as they have. I mean, Taijuan Walker, 2 earned runs in his last 26 innings pitched. He's really in a good place right now. But the Phillies in general are in a good place right now. You know, there's always that thing where Kyle Schwarber is like the best hitter on the planet in the month of June. Somehow that's infected the entire Philadelphia organization. They are 10-1 in their last 11 road games. They are 17-5 in their last 22 overall. They're just the hottest team in baseball right now. And I think if you can get them at a reasonable number, like minus 115, just take them on the money line.
All right, Dodgers and Rockies. Gary, what do you think? Looking for a Dodgers sweep here?
Yeah, probably. I just think Freddie Freeman's going to have a good night if I had to sort of single that out. Again, it's hard to like just bet the Dodgers in this game. But Freeman, it's plus money, plus 115 for him to go over 1.5 hits tonight. Now, generally speaking, I prefer taking the like hits, RBIs, runs bets or the total bases bets because it's hard to get 2 hits in a game. But Freddie Freeman is a guy you kind of trust to do it. He's one of 4 players this season with over 100 base hits in the first half. He's got an incredible WRC plus. He's been one of the hottest hitters on the planet since the beginning of May. And then you've got Chase Anderson on the mound for the Rockies, who has been bludgeoned his last 2 games. He has been absolutely terrible. He's got a opponent WOBA over 400 against left-handed bats so far this season. It's over 500 in those last 2 starts. It just seems like Freddie Freeman's going to have a really nice day. So to find any prop of his at plus money, I think you got to hop on that.
All right, Fryer, where are you going on this one?
I think it's a fair call on Freeman, and Garen's absolutely right that Chase Anderson has not been good coming off a pair of brutal outings. That said, I am going to go with another alternate under on this one, 12.5. Obviously, the total is set at 12. Want to get a little extra cushion there. The under is 6-5 in Colorado is playing an NL West team after a win. I know we talked, and Garen talked about Sheehan a little bit, I believe, but he shoved against his last 2 tough offenses that he's faced. You look at Colorado, 6th worst ISO against right-handed pitching this month, 3rd highest K rate against right-handed pitching this month. So that's helped him out a ton. And then you look at Anderson. I know what you've seen from LA in this series, 5 runs in that first game, 8 runs in the second game. The Dodgers only have an ISO of 147 against right-handed pitching this month. And they're also top 10 in K rate against right-handed pitching this month. So I understand it's weird to think Anderson having a bounce back start in Colorado against the Dodgers, but he's actually had some good outings in Colorado this season. So I expect him to do that tonight and keep this game under 12.5 runs.
All right, guys, that was a tremendous job that you two just brought to the table in that segment. We will do that DFS thing around the diamond coming up in this show. But as for now, we're going to head to Fenway, also known as ... Midtown, if you see what I just did there, where recently Jared Carrabis sat down with Mariners catcher Cal Raleigh and why a trip to a Chili's restroom nearly not only changed his life, but his career.
All right, we got Cal Raleigh, Seattle Mariners. By the way, have you heard the nickname America's Team? Has that made its way across the Seattle Mariners?
I've heard it. I've seen it a little on Twitter.
Yeah,
but I don't know if that's quite caught on yet.
I mean, we gotta get it to catch on because the Seattle Mariners are America's team. This is so I last October was in Seattle. I had to be there for the first playoff game since 2001, and I think the first thing that stood out to me was the fans were on their feet the entire time. And it was an 18-inning game in which you were behind the plate for. So I was miserable standing. Like, I feel like if I'm a Mariners fan, then obviously you have that like adrenaline going and you don't really feel it. But as a neutral fan, I was like, 18 innings is a long time to be standing up. What was it like to be catching 18 innings in a playoff game?
It was a long game.
Yeah, it was like what, 5 hours?
Yeah, it was something crazy like that. And,
Yeah.
and the crazy thing was nobody scored. It was
Nobody scored.
It was a 1-0 game. So
Yeah.
it was insane. I mean, like you said, the fans were on their feet the entire game, and it was like, I think they were just like, when's this gonna end?
Give us something to cheer
When's
about.
somebody gonna score? And
Yeah.
but it was awesome. I mean, Seattle, they love us there, and they love their sports, and they really get behind us, and it was a really special day.
You've got New England roots. Obviously, I feel like you get asked about that every time you come to Fenway. Your family is here from Vermont last night. And I was stunned. Anytime, like, I feel like baseball is obviously one of those sports where any night you can tune in and something can happen that's never happened before. But for like Fenway Park specific history, to be the first catcher to hit a home run from both sides of the plate, and obviously you're a Jason Varitek guy. The fact that he was in the dugout on the other side. I know you mentioned after the game he gave you like a jersey last year.
Yeah, I got a signed jersey. Christopher Negron, our first base coach, he played in the Red Sox orgs for a little bit, so he got it hooked up for us, and yeah, he signed it, wrote a nice little note on there, and it's got it hanging up in my house. So
When did you first learn that you were the first catcher to do that at Fenway Park? And like, how cool is that? Because like, I know you're a Mariners guy now, but like you grew up a Red Sox fan. Like, how cool is that?
it's really cool. I mean, I didn't know until after the game. They said they had a fun fact for me, and obviously kind of blew up a little bit, but it's really cool. I mean, it's something that nobody can ever take that away from me, and to do it here is super special.
Do you still feel that like holy shit factor when you get to play at Fenway, or is it just like, oh, it's another day in the big leagues?
No, I mean, you definitely feel a little special walking in here, and you can definitely tell it from everybody. Whether we got more people traveling with us because they want to see the park, and they do super special stories, or just guys walking around, going on the Monster, going up into Ted Williams' seat up there, and you can just tell it's a different.
Do you think
it's a
you hit
different
it?
feeling. I don't. No,
there's no chance, dude. No.
He might have did it.
So, do you know the story about Ortiz?
No,
I was just telling one of the Mariners PR guys because they were like, we're going to go walk out to the Red Sea. And I was like, it's. So back, I think it was 2008, 2006, like somewhere in that range, Ortiz brought an aluminum bat out here and tried to hit the red seat. Couldn't do it.
Really?
There's no chance that that's real.
I don't know.
If David Ortiz in his prime couldn't hit it with a metal bat, there's no way that Ted Williams in the 40s was able to do that.
You got to believe.
I don't believe.
You got to believe.
I don't believe. And I also don't believe that it's 502 feet. Like, do you know the Manny Ramirez story? Manny hit a home run into that light tower.
Okay.
And the Red Sox were like, let's call it 501 because that's 502, and they didn't want Manny's home run to be the longest home run in Fenway Park history. So that one was 501, even though it was 6,000 feet, and that one's 502, even though that's probably like 700 feet from home plate.
It's a long way. I mean,
It's a long way.
I mean, they were swinging trees back then, though. Literal trees.
David Ortiz with a metal bat in his prime.
I don't know.
There's no way. There's no way.
We'll never know.
I'm one of the biggest Red Sox fans in the world, and I'm sitting here saying it's not true. So there's no like blasphemy here if you say that you don't believe the rumor. So last night, 2 home runs. What would you say? Like, I've grown up a Red Sox fan. Obviously, it's like you hit the home run from both sides of the plate. When did you learn that you were a switch hitter? Or did you, growing up a Red Sox fan and being a fan of Jason Varitek, did you say, oh, he's a switch hitting catcher? Like, I want to try that. Because I think it's like crazy to me when you have someone that's like that can hit at the big league level from both sides when most people can't do it from one side. When did you learn that you're a hitter guy?
So my dad was a coach, and growing up, I think that was kind of his plan. I was going to play baseball, and from the minute I started swinging, I've been, he switched me around to the other side. So I've never known any other way. I've always thought that everybody was supposed to switch it, and then obviously when you get to Little League and all that stuff, you learn that people usually hit from the right side, and I'm just thankful that he switched me around that day early on when we were just it's just as soon as I could swing. So
you ever have a coach tell you that you got to pick one side?
Yeah, I've had people tell me. I've had people come in. Funny stories. I've been in. I was in like a Chili's bathroom.
Yeah.
And I had this like, I don't know who he was. It was a dad of somebody that I played with, and he came in and he gave me a rundown on how I couldn't be a you know, I can't remember if it was a right-handed hitter or a left-handed hitter, but he's saying I needed to give it up and that he knew that I was better at this side and that he thinks I'd make it a little further if I would just stay on one side.
In a bathroom at Chili's.
In a bathroom at Chili's.
See, that would have been like a way better story if like you were exclusively a left-handed hitter and some dude in Chili's bathroom came up to you and was like, bro, you got to try hitting from the right side too. Like throw that into your repertoire.
It was completely out of pocket too. It was like I don't know if I haven't seen him in years and like I don't even know if I even liked the guy in the first place. He came up to me and said that. I'm like, all right, thanks, guy.
So I'm in search of the best pitch in baseball. I'm asking a bunch of guys, who do you think has the best singular pitch in baseball?
That's a tough one.
Have you seen Devin Williams' changeup?
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
I've heard it's really good.
Yep.
There's a lot of good ones out there. I think one of the toughest pitches is a splitter, and you know,
Nathan Eovaldi, Texas Rangers.
I wouldn't say his. I would say he's got a good splitter for sure.
Yeah.
I think Ohtani's. I saw Frankie Montas had a really good splitter
Mhm.
a couple years ago.
Who's that?
Tell you what,
Duran. He's got like
the splinker.
Yeah, he's got like the 99 mile an hour splitter with the 103 mile an hour fastball that rides.
That one's tough.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Kenley Jansen's cutter. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
People-
Well, now it's 99 apparently.
Yeah. He guys keeps getting better. So.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been outrageous. All right, last question before we let you go because I know you got stuff to do. A lot of downtime for baseball players. You traveling a lot. What are we watching on the flights? Are you a nap guy on flights? Are you a book guy? Are you a movie guy? Are you a show guy?
So on flights, you know, I like to play cards, but you know, the table gets full sometimes, and you know, get the high rollers on there, obviously. But you know, I mix it up, take naps, watch shows. I like watching The Office. Kind of, it's my go-to.
Did you do Game of Thrones?
I didn't do Game of Thrones.
Okay, so I didn't either. I get judged a lot for those. Like you mentioned, like because we were talking earlier about like favorite movies. You mentioned Shawshank Redemption. I've never seen it. People look at
Great
me like
movie.
I have 5 heads when I've never seen that. The Office, never seen it. And people are always like, how have you never seen The Office? My explanation for that is that that's everyone's favorite show. So if I start watching it now, then I'm going to want to come to someone like you who says it's your favorite show and be like, hey, like, you know, this really funny episode. And you're like, yeah, dude, like I saw that 8 years ago. Like there's no circle of people who are just starting to watch The Office right now.
No, not right
No,
now.
like I need to find like a support group of people that are like first time Office watchers so you can talk about the episodes together because otherwise I'm going to feel like I'm bothering people.
Well, I mean, you just get guys like me who just keep rewatching it over and over and just, you know, constantly have, you know, some part of The Office going on.
You ever do Breaking Bad?
I did.
How many times?
Great show. I did. I wouldn't say twice, like 1.5.
Okay,
I think I restarted it up. 7?
7.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean,
dude, I
I
don't
say
do
that,
anything
and
in
I've watched
off-season.
The Office at least 10 times.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but those are like
great shows.
half-hour episodes that you can put on and fall asleep to, and it doesn't like you don't have to pay attention.
It's like background noise. kinda.
Yeah, like Breaking Bad, like when you start that, you're making a choice. Like I'm locked in for like the next.
Those
5
are the
weeks.
best shows, though.
Yeah.
When you can lock in like that, and you're like, I can't be on my phone. I can't be, you know, web, Instagram, whatever.
Yeah.
You gotta be locked in those.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're apparently locked in. 2 homers last night. I would say good luck, but I am a Red Sox fan. I know deep down you are too, so it's okay. Cal Raleigh, Seattle Mariners. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Appreciate it.
All right, the NFC West has sent a representative here to 3 of the past 5 Super Bowls. Yet it's a 2-horse race entering the upcoming year. 49ers and Seahawks expected to contend for the division title. Rams and Cardinals are kind of hanging out somewhere between irrelevance and hopelessness. At least that's what it feels like entering the year. DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich, Jeff Ulrich, welcome to the show. Here for a DFS and betting preview of this emotional division.
Wow. Okay. Very emotional. Jeff, give us a future bet or perhaps like DFS player who's going to perform well for the defending division champ San Francisco 49ers. Who is it and why?
Well, I'm just going to give you a straight up bet for the 49ers.
Okay.
That's going to be under 10.5 wins. You know, I mean, again, you know, 49ers performed extremely well last year, but man, I mean, they got some things going up against them. I mean, this is a team that's committed to Brock Purdy, like a 7th round draft pick coming off major elbow surgery as their starter. And really, like the other option here seems to be Sam Darnold. This team just does not seem to have any interest in letting Trey Lance grow. So right off the bat, there's a little bit of warning signs here that San Francisco may have just tied themselves to a player who's potentially going to be regressing a little bit at the start of the year, maybe not even through fault of his own, just through injury issues. That's worrisome to me. The other part of this is, and this is a shout out to Warren Sharp analysis, but San Francisco absolutely has one of the worst schedules this year. In terms of rest differential, they are one of the bottom teams in the league. The 49ers have 20 fewer rest days than their opponents this year. They're bottom of the league in that regard. And you say, well, teams travel all the time, but this has proven that this really does affect win rate, especially towards the end of the year. They're playing 4 teams coming off buys. I think 11 wins is going to be really tough for the 49ers this year. And you're getting plus 125. You're getting really good odds right now to take the under on the 49ers. I like that. Under 10.5 wins for San Francisco.
All right, Pierce, where are you going with this one?
Jeff is angry. I like it. Over the last 2 seasons, no one's been a bigger 49ers backer than Jeff. So to see him be upset about their choice not to go with Trey Lance, he's a big Trey Lance guy. So I can understand why Jeff is a little down on them. And it's still too early to say if Lance is going to get a chance. And maybe Darnold on a good team can actually perform. But there are a ton of weapons around these guys. As long as they stay healthy, 10.5 probably is not that high. But then again, that's a big if, considering that a lot of these 49ers have had injuries in the last couple of seasons. Although they've overcome those injuries, those things kind of compound and pile up. It could be issues moving forward. But from the fantasy perspective, we kind of got to like Christian McCaffrey a little bit, considering he came into this team last year cold and immediately was an impact player. Now he's going to have plenty of time to game plan around. And then also, if they do go with Trey Lance, we've seen this script before. CMC and Cam Newton were absolutely beasts. If that happens, I think they're absolutely going to roll over the DFS community.
Speaking of beasts, Pierce, let's talk about Geno Smith and them Seahawks, baby. Coming off a 9-win season, a wild card appearance. You got a bet or a DFS play for
Talk
us?
about being a team stan. This is Pierce's a ride or die for these guys.
Yeah, I don't know how I became the ride or die.
Oh, come on!
guy,
You know
but,
exactly how.
Because you talked about them for 2 straight months.
Yeah, what do you mean you don't know how this
You're a
happened?
freaking fraud, Pierce. You're a fraud.
Oh, we have the receipts, Pierce.
I know who I am. I just can't believe that I became this person. So here I am, and it's not going to change now. They've got a great team. They've only gotten better. You've got 3 receivers now. We've got Kenny Walker, the third, going to come into his second season. From DFS, it's going to be rough to predict, and from a season-long perspective, it's going to be tough because those guys are all going to hurt each other. But if you look at who benefits from having all these weapons, it's going to be Geno, who right at the moment has a 102 ADP. It's like the 15th quarterback off the board. I think in best ball, that's an absolute steal. In your season-long, there's going to be weeks where he absolutely crushes. It's going to be matchup dependent. But I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive this year with all the receivers bringing the highest state. Jackson Smith in GB. I knew I was going to mess that up.
Yep.
And then, I think the over on 8.5 is where it stands recently. I think you got to take that. Pete Carroll, Hall of Famer. The defense has gotten better. Seahawks all the way.
Jeff, you expect them to be highly competitive again, push for another playoff spot?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Pierce handled the fantasy situation there. It is going to be a little bit difficult from a season-long perspective. Which wide receiver do you want to be targeting? I still think DK Metcalf has the highest upside of this group. Tyler Lockett, JSN, they may split some targets. Lockett may lose a little bit of a target share, but those are still really quality receivers. I think Pierce is right in highlighting Geno Smith's ADP. If he's got all these receivers, he's going to be the biggest beneficiary. But in terms of betting, let's just go to the division win. I just finished talking down San Francisco. You're getting plus 195 on the DraftKings Sportsbook to take Seattle to win the division. In terms of rest disparity, too, I just talked about San Francisco having one of the worst, just schedules in the league. The Seahawks actually have pretty good rest disparity, the 9th in terms of that stat, again, from Warren Sharp's website. So, I like everything Seattle is putting out here. I mean, they're going to get a little bit more rest, a little bit better schedule in San Francisco. They've got way more depth. They're not going to be pushovers on defense. Their corners are going to be absolutely terrifying to throw against, in my opinion. I think Seattle plus 195. I think that this number is going to go down as you get closer to the regular season. I think right now, probably a good time to hop on the Seahawks.
All right, Jeff, how about the Rams? Their season win total sitting at 6.5. They are plus 1,000 to win the division.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Rams are a sneaky team. I mean, I really wouldn't hate like an over bet on the 6.5 wins. I mean, you look at Sean McVay; he's achieved this over in each of his first 4 seasons with the Rams, excluding last year. They easily went over 6.5 wins. They're going to have Stafford back. They're going to have Cup back. But at the same time, I really like the Rams for fantasy. We just finished talking about how jumbled it is on the Seahawks, but Cam Akers this season is going to be coming in and just taking a boatload of carries. And he looked very good down the stretch. I've never been the biggest Cam Akers guy, but wow, did he rebound in the second half of the year. He was getting over 70% of the snap share in his final 6 games. He was RB4 in full PPR scoring in his last 6 games of the season last year. He's a year removed from an Achilles injury. He has no competition on the depth chart. And if you look on the DraftKings Sportsbook, you want a little Cam Akers action, you can get a bet under team specials, Cam Akers or Van Jefferson to have 1,250 or more regular season yards from scrimmage at plus 200. Now, I don't think Van Jefferson's going to do it for you unless Cooper Kupp just takes the year off. But Cam Akers absolutely, I think, could hit that. He's going to get a ton of usage. You just need him to stay on the field. So one way to attack Cam Akers there on the DK Sportsbook if you're so inclined.
All right, Pierce, how do you navigate the Rams here?
I don't really want anything to do with the over-under at 6.5. I just don't know if I can completely trust this defense. They've been good over the last couple seasons. Yeah, last year was a down year, but their defense was a lot stronger in the past. The offense really hasn't changed much. Even when they went to the Super Bowl, it was basically Stafford and Kupp. I know Beckham had a little bit of input, and they had slightly a bit of a running game, but they put up big numbers because Stafford and Kupp were just basically going back and forth, 20 targets per game. You'd like to see the offensive line be a little bit better. That really hurt them last season. It kind of hurt them during their Super Bowl run a little bit too, but I don't think that's going to be that detrimental to Kupp's potential. He doesn't really run big, deep routes. He has no problem getting open on those 15-yard intermediate routes, giving him 20 targets. I think Kupp's just going to be absolutely awesome, especially when you really look at this roster. There's just no one else. I know Jeff is big on Cam Akers, but, man, it's hard to trust Rams running backs. I think it's easy to trust that Kupp's going to get a boatload of targets again.
It's going to be a long season for Arizona here, Pierce. You got a bet or DFS play for the Cardinals. I believe they're underdogs in every game currently at the moment. How about a winless season, plus 1,600? They're the favorites to do it.
Yeah, that seems pretty. It's kind of fun.
Yeah,
it's also
that's what I'm saying. We like fun.
It's a little dirty too. I feel bad
we
for
like
any of
dirty.
the Cardinals fans watching that we are considering betting on them losing every single game. My apologies to them, but let's be a little optimistic. You know, when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, no one really thought that was a Super Bowl team. On paper, that wasn't the greatest team ever. Last year, your Jacksonville Jaguars were improved, but no one was super excited about them other than probably you and a couple people in Jacksonville. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. I know that the roster doesn't look very good on paper. They still have a decent quarterback if they cut him loose. I don't think there's any way they're going to win or lose every game. Even Houston last year, which is a terrible team, they still won 3 games. So I don't think you can take that bet. If you want to go with the under, I have no problem, although it's a pretty microscopic under. But then again, things could get worse. So I don't think they're going to go over anything.
I'm glad you brought up Houston because the Cardinals in 2024, Jeff, the Cardinals own their first-round pick and Houston's, so perhaps that'll be enough to carry the fans' spirits here over what's going to be a lowly few months.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be great, but I mean, as far as like the winless season goes and win totals, I mean, let's not forget, like Kyler Murray will probably be back at some point. He may even be back a little bit earlier than people think, potentially like week 7, week 8. That will give them a boost towards the end of the year, which I think will potentially even make them like slight over targets. I mean, right now you're going to have to pay a little bit of juice to take the under. I'm not going to touch the team total here either. Like Pierce, I just don't think there's any value or just any reason to do it. There's too many unknowns. Kyler could come back, be okay, snag them wins. You get burned on an over on a not good number, but In terms of fantasy purposes, again, another team kind of like the Rams, where I think there's some players in very good situation. James Conner is interesting, but Marquise Brown is really the player I want to target here. You're talking best ball drafts or you're talking season-long fantasy. Marquise Brown is coming into a situation where he's got the human Dortch and Greg Dortch and Rondale Moore, who really can't stay on the field as his only competition for targets right now. Marquise Brown is a player who we've seen splash with big games before in the Ravens and even last year with Kyler Murray. And the Cardinals have this guy named Clayton Tune who's got a big arm and could potentially come in and really just make Marquise Brown a pretty decent performer over the first few weeks of the season. I like Marquise Brown in season long. And if, again, bringing this back to the DraftKings Sportsbook, there's a bet here for Marquise Brown to just have one single game with 120 receiving yards or more. Just one game at plus 200. He's achieved this mark in each of the last 2 years. Marquise Brown is a burner. We're talking like 170-yard play, and he's probably there for the game. So really interesting bet there. Good odds at plus 200. I like Marquise Brown next year for fantasy.
All right, good stuff, guys. These previews will keep coming, and the NFL offseason storylines are abundant, okay? Some rumors that Hard Knocks could be the Jets. That would be extremely fun with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, who knows what we would get out of that. So what do Golic and Smetty think about the upcoming Hard Knocks series? I do not know. Let's take a look.
All right, Jess, so Hard Knocks. You watch Hard Knocks every year?
Okay, so I used to. It used to be the highlight of my August because you get so bored of no football, and then you finally get like a tiny little morsel of football when Hard Knocks comes back, and you turn it on and you hear the with the sprinklers and everything, and like that always like it scratches an itch. You're like, okay, we're almost there. It's preseason time, but I have to admit the last 2 seasons I completely skipped because it just got so undramatic, uninteresting, just very formulaic, and I lost interest.
The Jets may be the team, and I think if people had their choice, if you gave people a choice, a lot of people might pick the Jets because of the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, right? But I don't know, Jess, what you'll get, because if players aren't really into it, because you want to find that personality. Who's going to be the personality? But if they do in fact do the Jets, they're going to obviously be going for Aaron Rodgers and saying Aaron's our guy. But what if Aaron's not really into it?
There's a lot of interesting things there too, because I think one of the reasons Hard Knocks has become like less of a must-watch for me is because there have been so many instances in the past 5 years especially where from reading reports that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and Hard Knocks is like, we're not going to touch that. We're not going to mention that. We're going to skate right past it. Anything that's like, remotely controversial, we're not really going to touch. And so it's kind of like, okay, we're not getting the full picture here of what's actually going on at training camp.
Can you do the sprinkler sound one more time? That's pretty good.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, welcome back to The Sweat. You are looking at the top-priced DFS hitters on today's main slate. It's pretty small one, 5-game main slate. So we're bringing in RotoWire's Eric Halterman to help us navigate it. My man, we just looked at some pricey bats there, but we need a pitcher over 8K that you need to have in your lineup tonight. Who is it and why?
Yeah, it's a weird slate. They're always kind of weird when they're this small, and this time the pitching selections are pretty short on guys that I would say I fully trust. In this expensive bracket, Max Scherzer at 11,000 is the guy who I have the most faith in today, and he's priced in accordance with that fact. So you're going to have to pay up to get him, and you're going to have to pay up to get a Max Scherzer that isn't even as good as the Max Scherzer we've seen before. I think at his age, we're probably not going to see Max Scherzer again, although this version is still fine. 3.95 ERA is more or less in line with the ERA estimators. His xFIP is right there. His Sierra 370 says he could be doing a bit better. The main difference is he's no longer an elite strikeout guy. He used to be regularly above 30% in strikeout rate. He's down at 26% this year, but he's still not walking guys, and he's been good in his last 2 starts, 16 strikeouts against just 2 walks. But what makes me really like him here is that he's facing a Brewers lineup that just has not gotten it done this season. They sit 3rd from the bottom in Team WRC+. So I think that justifies the really expensive price, but there's some really expensive bats, as you showed earlier. If you don't think you can get all the way to 11,000, Taijuan Walker at 8,800 against the Cubs, I think is a pretty decent backup, mostly because he's been very good lately. 0.69 ERA, 26 strikeouts against 6 walks in his last 4 starts. Of course, he wasn't very good before then. Those 5.65 ERA in his first 12 starts in the year. I don't think I necessarily trust that Taijuan Walker is now a frontline starter, but the competition is not great. So I think he's a pretty decent second choice in this expensive bracket.
All right, let's go not so expensive. How about a pitcher under $8,000, dude?
Yeah, well, I said I was having trouble finding guys I trust over 8,000. What do you think the picture is under 8,000? It's not much better. The RotoWire Optimizer really likes Keaton Winn in this one. He's at the minimum price for a pitcher, just 4,000, and I think that's why something like the RotoWire Optimizer, which is taking your projections and spitting out an optimized lineup for you, they're going to like something where the price tag is extremely low. The question is, are you going to get anything from him? It's a scary matchup against a talented Blue Jays lineup, and Winn is not a frontline prospect. He's shown some things, though, this year in 3 relief appearances, which have been fairly long. He's faced between 14 and 18 batters in them, gone between 3 and 5 innings. So he might go long enough for a win here. He's been pretty good, 3.75 ERA, not quite enough strikeouts, just shy of 19%. But there's something there. It would really just be a strategic play, though, a way to fit in, say, Max Scherzer plus some expensive Dodgers bats. Maybe you have to go to Keaton Winn. If you're not thinking you're going to get much from him, you could take the risk on Emmett Sheehan at 7,400 at Coors Field. It's not a great Rockies lineup, but it's still Coors Field, though. So I'm not sure about that one. Maybe even JP France right on that line at 8,000, coming off 4 straight quality starts is a boring, solid option. But man, you have to work pretty hard to talk yourself into some of these guys today.
All right, Eric, talk me into an infielder who's over $4,500.
Yeah, so it's kind of level 1 stuff, but if you get really good hitters going to Coors Field against a really bad pitcher, you're probably wanting to use them in your lineups. And I'm going to go Freddie Freeman here. If you're only using one Dodger among the team's most expensive bats, Freeman is the guy I'd go with at 6,100 because he gets the platoon advantage against Chase Anderson, who was surprisingly good early in this season, but I don't think there was any real reason to buy into 35-year-old Chase Anderson suddenly figuring it out with the Rockies. And indeed, in his last 2 starts, he's allowed 16 runs, so he looks like Chase Anderson again. There's some chance of rain in this one, which is going to create an interesting tactical decision here because this is also, I believe, the last game on the slate. It starts at 8:40 while the rest of the slate starts at 7. And the interesting thing that this might do for DFS purposes is the Dodgers at Coors against Chase Anderson is the extremely obvious stack. In any sort of cash game, anything where you're only trying to finish top half, you're going to want that stack, and so is everybody else. But this rain situation, depending on how that looks late in the afternoon, by the time the first games are getting started, that might cause this Dodgers stack to be less owned than it would otherwise. Although, of course, if you go with them and you get it wrong and it rains, yikes. So it's a tough decision there, but it's really the rain would be the only thing keeping me off of the best Dodgers hitters here.
All right, let's go to the outfield. How much money you want to spend here? Give me a dude north of $4,500.
Yeah, if I'm sticking away from that super expensive Dodgers stack, I think my second favorite stack would be the Astros, led by Kyle Tucker, who's just at 5,000 here. Kyle Tucker on the season 122 WRC plus on his last 14 games, so that's all the way up to 157. He's got as many walks as strikeouts in those last 14 games, homered twice, stolen 4 bases. And Kyle Tucker is 26 years old, who is walking more than he ever has before and striking out less than he ever has before. This looks like a guy who every year is awesome and might even be doing something a little bit more this season. So far, the power hasn't been quite a little more than we've seen before. His barrel rate, 7.6%, is down a couple points from his career mark, but his hard hit rate is up a couple points. So I think we take those two together and say he's hitting it more or less the same as he used to and is showing better plate discipline. I'm really intrigued by what we might see from Kyle Tucker in the second half.
All right, Eric, who intrigues you under $3,500? Need some value for the lineup.
Yeah, let's stick in that same lineup with Kyle Tucker because if I'm stacking the Astros, I would like that stack to extend to Yainer Diaz, who is technically a catcher. He's catcher eligible. He's been playing designated hitter pretty regularly in the absence of Yordan Alvarez, and he's been batting 5th. So I think a stack that goes through the middle of that Astros lineup, particularly because they're facing Adam Wainwright, who's got a 6.56 ERA on the season, striking out 10.9% of opposing batters. I want any decent Astro, and Diaz is at least decent, especially because he qualifies at the catcher position. He's a bat-first catching prospect who, again, they're not even using at catcher. They use Martin Maldonado, who is a no-bat catcher, but that's the way they like to build their teams. Diaz has hit well enough to be an okay DH. He wouldn't be DHing regularly for a healthy, good team. He doesn't walk at all. 2.1% walk rate leads to a 278 on-base percentage. But he doesn't strike out that much either, just an 18% strikeout rate. He swings aggressively and he hits the ball hard. Barrel rate over 13%. He's got 7 homers. That puts him on pace for 29 over the course of 600 plate appearances. So pretty good pop for a catcher, and he's only going to cost you $3,200 here.
Eric, your job here is done. We'll talk a little bit of baseball coming up with Mike Manansky, little Monday Mutt Stack on Thursday. We'll also talk some Wemby, who some with the Levitard and Friends crew is calling a bust already. A little overrated maybe?
I've been doing some research on the draft, and Wembanyama, not good.
At basketball? First pitch wasn't good.
No.
But the hand explains it. It's hard to get a good grip on the baseball when your
He
hand's
was holding
that
a
big.
golf ball, it looked like.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's the picture you were talking
His
about before.
fingernails, if you were to paint his fingernails
Great
with
fingernails.
nail polish, you have to use one little tube per nail, right? They're humongous.
I don't know.
They're so big.
I take your word for it. I don't.
Mike Ryan has now had the takes on Wembanyama because he's going the other way on having takes
You think he's
different
bad?
from everyone else. He said he's going to
He
get
got
hurt.
swept. He got swept in the finals. I think he's going to get hurt. He's a turnover machine. And what do you think he shoots from 3? Take a guess. He takes a lot.
8%.
Oh, you think 30%? I'd kill if he shot 30%. Man, woo! Draft that guy number 1.
He is not yet good from 3, just like Giannis is not yet good from 3. They can grow into that over
If you
5 or 6
like
years.
project his turnovers, especially to a much more competitive league, he has a shot. If they decide to make him a ball handler at the NBA level, he has a shot to be the most turnover-prone player in the league.
Mike, he's 19.
Yeah.
He's going to grow into his body. He's going to grow into his mindset of how to play basketball,
you
how to
do-
learn,
cool.
especially from Pop. Like,
you do the forecasting. I'll tell you right now, this player not good.
you probably said the same thing about Giannis when the Bucks drafted him.
Yeah, he wasn't good at that point. It took him
Whoever's
And now he's
editing
one of the
this
best players
hour,
in the league.
Yeah,
mark
yeah.
all
You
of
do the
that.
forecasting. I'll tell you what it is right now. You tell me what it's going to be. I'll tell you what it is.
This is Mike Ryan.
Someone put this on Twitter,
It's gonna be on his tombstone. It's gonna read on his tombstone. You tell me what it's
Serial
gonna be.
truth teller.
I'll tell you what it is.
You should
That's a good take.
Place a bet on DraftKings today that he's not going to be there.
Serial truth teller is going to go on my tombstone.
You should make a bet on DraftKings. Is Wembanyama going to get hurt? Will he be bad? Is he already bad at basketball, and he's going to be bad? The most surefire prospect since LeBron.
The most surefire torn Achilles I've ever seen in my entire life.
There it is.
I wish that evil on him, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
I'm not wishing that evil on him.
But then in the universe.
I mean, at
I
this
think
point
you want
are.
him to fail.
At this
You
point
want
you
him to
are.
fail.
So
I
you
do
right.
just because I'm the only person with this plot of land.
do.
Yeah. No, I do want him to fail now because I'm the only anti-Wemby guy.
And you're staking out your position early.
What? I was right about Chet Holmgren's legs.
That Holmgren.
I was right about his legs.
Okay, so just to be clear, your take now is that spindly 7'1" inflatable car wash men might get hurt because basketball's hard and I think the Achilles might snap. That's your take.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Okay.
I'm done talking for this segment, by the way. I've reached my allotment.
I mean, it is. It's a great take. It's a great take. It's indisputable that, yes, if you look like Porzingis, all those joints and elbows and stuff, something might snap in your foot. Yes.
Something maybe might happen to you.
Yes.
No,
And
it will.
we can't prove it. And
It
then
will.
No, it will.
It will. I
It
guarantee
will.
it.
No, and I
guarantee it.
understand. And when he's writhing on the ground because this great hope has dismantled in front of your face, Mike Ryan's going to be doing a victory lap with a flag. I got it right. I was the first one who said anywhere that he was going to get a career-ending injury.
Three-team trade between the Celtics, Grizzlies, and Wizards, sending shockwaves through the NBA last week. Can you believe it? A lot of emotional people here in Boston. Let's talk to Mike Mutnansky about said emotions. Mike, we've missed you the past few weeks here, my dude. We need to catch up a little. And let's start with that trade we just punched up on the screen. How does trading away Marcus Smart and adding Kristaps Porzingis change the outlook of Boston?
Yeah, unlike most of social media guys, I liked this trade. This roster had plenty of guards, but not enough talent up front. And it was clear from the playoffs, like Al Horford, as a starter and a 40-minute guy at night, he ain't in anymore. He's washed. And so I've stopped the cry. I didn't cry at all, but I'm glad Celtics fans have stopped crying and recognized this is a good trade for the organization. Are they the finals favorite? Should they be the finals favorite? The answer is no. They're a terrible bet. I would not bet a dime of Nick Fryer's money on the Celtics to win the NBA championship. But the upside is better now. Porzingis is a good pick and roll player. And like if he makes Tatum and Brown better, their upside is the best team in the Eastern Conference. But unless you can tell me it's like NBA 2K and I can turn the injuries off and Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon and Porzingis stay healthy, then their ceiling right now is top of the Eastern Conference. And they're a good team, maybe a great team. We'll see, but they feel about the same with different pieces to me right now.
Okay, so this is like not a move that you believe will get them over that hump that every green teamer has been desperately seeking and asking for them to do over the past few years.
And how much will they miss Marcus Smart, this guy who's been considered kind of a part of the fabric of this team?
Oh, the emotional leader, the defensive
big
quarterback.
locker room guy.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to the people that were saying on social media last week. Marcus Smart is a top 5 Celtic of all time.
Oh,
he's
Mike.
Guys. You ever seen? You guys have both watched him play.
Yep.
He's a very good player, a very good to great defensive player who occasionally hits an open three or a clutch shot, but does come with some weird shot selection. And I think he thought he was better than he was, and I always felt like he was a bit overrated here. So how much do they miss him? I mean, as a player, they can replace him with White and Brogdon. Those guys do similar things. I do wonder, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago during the playoffs, like there were times where he was holding Joe Mazzulla's hand as like a coach on the sideline. And so I do worry about how much of an impact it has there. But talk about emotion and being an emotional leader. Jason Tatum, you're a top 5 player in the NBA. Your turn to step up, fill that void, and replace that Marcus Smart heart and soul guy. Marcus Smart leaving is not the reason they will not or will win an NBA championship. It's not as emotional as social media has led you to believe the last 2 weeks.
Oh my God, you can't believe everything you see on the internet? That's wild.
You
I know,
have to,
I know.
Mike. You need to start buying in more, especially the emotions. Everyone is so cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah. Well, speaking of cool, calm, and collected, we had the NBA draft last week. Not a ton of drama, not anything really crazy. Wemby obviously headed to San Antonio. What's your outlook for this guy and for the Spurs in year 1 with him?
I'd put him in the Hall of Fame right now. Let's just do it. Let's just skip it all. Let's put him right. Go out to Springfield. We'll put the bus there. He'll be good. It's a fascinating story. I think this year he's going to win Rookie of the Year. And just watching him play, this brings me back a little bit to the 90s when he had these high school players come in. He didn't quite know what they were. What's this guy, Kevin Garnett? How are they going to play? Like I've seen the highlights in the French league where he pulls up from the corner, hits the three. Like, can he do that in the NBA? If he can, he's a legit Hall of Fame threat at this point. 7'4", can dribble, can shoot threes. Obviously, I think he's got to bulk up, like Emerson does during those bulks and cuts. As far as in terms of his impact on the league, 7'4" can do it all. And he gets a good coach too. Like Popovich has done this before. So I think he's a player that's going to win the Rookie of the Year. And if he stays healthy and bulks up, he's a guy who might be at the end of his career like a league-changing type of player based on his size and based on his skill.
And so some listen to him as 7'2". Some claim that he was 7'5". Wembanyama said himself as recently as June 21st that he is 7'3". So we have the official measurement. 7 feet, 3.5 inches tall.
Wow.
Okay, that's without shoes. Just so we can clear the air on the dispute of how tall this lanky man is. I don't think there's any dispute if you look down at Fenway, and Jared Carrabis has said it himself here, Mutt, how mid the Red Sox are. They lose 15 to 22, reel off 6 straight, they drop a few series here. Should we just accept them for who they are?
Yeah, having texted with Jared about this Red Sox season, at one point he just said, and probably publicly and privately, just don't ruin my summer. And they're not doing that yet, but you just summed it up perfectly. Like, it's a very bridgy Red Sox season. They were always going to be a bridgy team. That's what they are. You know, Yoshida's been a great find for Chaim Bloom in the offseason. Very good offensive player. And in general, the offense is good. I think 8th in runs scored, but 21st in home runs, so the power has not been there. Pitching and defense, rough. ERA is 22nd, 29th in errors, 25th defensive runs saved. Trevor Story comes back, and yes, he helps the offense at some point, but does that make the pitching and the defense better? I don't think so. Like, this is the T-shirt I would print. They're an average team in an above-average division, the 2023 Red Sox. So that's what they've been is what they're going to be, I think.
And then Jared even tweeted last night, good thing about this season is that virtually nobody is having fun no matter what team you root for. There are like 3 happy fan bases. Red Sox fans, not one of them.
Yeah, he's
They're
not
just kind of like,
wrong.
meh.
So Mutt, with the trade deadline approaching, I mean, should the Sox be buyers or sellers here?
Sell. Should have sold last year. Bloom messed it up. 2 years ago, they should have bought, and they dragged their feet there too. Like, this whole wild card thing is making them feel like they're in it. They're not really in it. I'll give you an example. Adam Duvall's here on a 1-year deal, $7 million. Like, that guy could help out 6 or 7 real championship contenders. Like, get him out of here. Play Durant all the time. This is not a championship contender. We should not be fighting for a wild card. Try to refocus on next year. Rebuild. You didn't do much in the offseason. There's no reason to buy. There's only selling signs from this team right now.
All right, what's an MLB bet you like for tonight?
I'll give you a player prop, guys. And I thought you had a lot of great analysis on the show today. But Luis Robert, I got to go back to him. I understand he's been one of the hottest players in baseball, 10 home runs in June. This guy is like Barry Bonds against left-handed pitching, OPS of 1.171. I like his total base prop on DK this morning at over 1.5, plus 105. I like his hits, runs, RBI prop over. I would sprinkle home run at plus 370 on Robert here tonight for the White Sox. And also in Showdown, there is a showdown game, White Sox and Angels. People are going to want to captain Ohtani offensively. I'm going to captain Robert and build my teams out there. And I like the over in that game, 2 mid pitchers, including Lance Lynn. So the over White Sox, Angels, and a lot of Luis Robert today when it comes to player props on the deck.
All right, really quick, what else is brewing at muttstack.com? People want to know.
Oh, we're going to pick through the Red Sox first half of the season and a big injury, Emerson, in horse racing for a 3-year-old. But we're going to power rank. People love power rankings. We're power ranking the 3-year-olds heading into the summer. Muttstack.com. Subscribe for free.
All right, dude. Thank you, Mutt. We love you. Mean it. We're
Love
back
you too.
tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time for a Friday edition of The Sweat. Really looking forward to that. We're going to miss you, Jesse.
All right.
Have a good one.